Hi, my name's Kate Druitt. I'm a clinical psychologist with the rheumatology team here at Southmead, and today I'm going to spend a little bit of time thinking about emotional well-being. So I'm going to think about why we think about this when living with an autoimmune condition, what to expect, think a little bit about stress and the impact of this, and also to think a little bit about what might help and what we've got available here within our rheumatology team. To start with, we're just going to think a little bit about the importance of emotional well-being and why it's important to think about this whilst living with an autoimmune condition such as rheumatoid arthritis or lupus. What we know is our mind and bodies are connected, and living with an autoimmune condition that might lead to pain or fatigue is likely at times to impact on how someone is feeling. Equally, if someone's struggling with a lot of stress or low mood, this might impact on their physical well-being or their autoimmune condition. It might also be much harder for that person to do the things that help them keep them well, such as keeping active or seeing friends. So finding a way for someone to look out for and be aware of what's going on in their minds as well as their bodies is important. We talk a lot in our groups about keeping the balance. So here's a self-management triangle. When we talk about this, what we want to think about is having the support we need around us, such as socially or emotionally, are important foundations for helping us to cope with the impact and the often extra demands and pressures of coping with a physical health problem. One of the reasons it's also important to check in with emotional well-being is that it can have knock-on effects in other areas of our lives. So if a person's having ongoing stress or worry without being able to enlist their usual support or coping strategies to help with this, then this in turn may lead to other difficulties. We can get into cycles. For example, if a person's coping with a lot of worry, this can make it much harder to sleep. We know there's many positive benefits of sleep, including helping our body to heal, and having enough sleep can help with coping day to day with pain. If someone's having difficulty sleeping, they are likely to have less energy, which in turn can make it harder for them to do the activities that might help with their physical and emotional well-being, such as keeping active. And we know that keeping active, such as walking or swimming, has many benefits, including helping to build up strength. And if a person's activity level drops, this risks their bodies becoming less fit and less able to support their joints. The consequences of not being able to exercise also risks increasing the level of pain that person might experience. The reverse of this cycle is also possible. If someone's able to have the support that they need with their stress, or they feel more able to exercise, they're likely to sleep better. So this cycle reflects how there's several possible points at which it might be possible to make changes, or for that person to begin to think about what they might need to help with that area. So we're going to think next about what feelings that you might expect when adjusting to change. Coping and adjusting to a change to our physical health may lead to several understandable and relatively normal feelings as our minds find ways to adjust, although at times these might feel overwhelming and distressing. There may be times when someone can feel quite stuck in a feeling, but if they can make some space and time to understand and think about how they're feeling, this will give them the opportunity to think about what they need at that moment in time. Feelings are our mind's way of communicating to us, a bit like warning signs in the dashboard of a car. We may not always notice them, or we can choose to ignore them, but this could have consequences. So if we can notice how we're feeling, this can be often the first step in thinking about what we might need to help with staying well. We wanted to think a bit more about stress in particular and how this can affect our health. Stress is also a very normal response to demand that we can experience many times day to day at many different levels, such as being late or needing to give a presentation at work, to coping with a close friend being unwell or being made redundant from work. We often can't change the stressful event itself, but we can think about what might help when we are feeling stressed. The first step is noticing the impact that stress can have on the body. If we think about a situation that might feel stressful, such as being late for an appointment, this can affect the way we think, how our body reacts, how we feel, and what we do. Often the way our body reacts doesn't help us to deal with a stressful situation, and under pressure we might be more likely to forget things or get lost. What we can see is there's a lot of physical effects of stress on the body, such as our muscles becoming tense, and this in turn can impact on the symptoms of an autoimmune condition, such as rheumatoid arthritis. If we can notice when we're beginning to feel more stressed, such as by noticing what we're doing or how we're feeling, this gives us an opportunity to think about what might help at that point. So it's really helpful to begin to notice what our warning signs might be. So what goes on when we begin to feel more stressed? While these feelings might feel quite unpleasant or can be quite distressing, they are normal physical responses, and this is our body's protective system, which is often known as a fight or flight response. Our body will employ a number of strategies to help us fight or run from danger, such as releasing hormones such as adrenaline. And this helps our bodies to prepare itself to cope with the threat of danger in front of us. This is evolved to help us deal with dangerous physical threats, such as protecting ourselves from an attack from a wild animal. However, nowadays we do not have as many physical threats, but we do have more psychological threats, such as the fear of not being able to work. The difficulties can occur in our bodies if someone has an ongoing higher level of stress for prolonged periods of time, and this can have quite an impact at times on someone's physical well-being, such as making it harder for them to sleep or making it harder for their body to heal. So why are we thinking about this in relation to an autoimmune condition? And people often notice in our groups, people often say how feeling stressed can impact on their arthritis and may lead to a flare in their pain or fatigue. Coping with an arthritis and the impact of fatigue or pain in day-to-day activities can also be stressful. So finding ways to cope with and understand feelings of stress is really important in helping someone to live well with an autoimmune condition and do what they can to help with their mind and body. So just going to think a little bit about what might help. And one of the ways we think about this on our courses is to think about the image of a stress bucket. Day to day we have all sorts of stresses that can fill our buckets, and coping with the addition of a physical health condition on top of everything else can really add to that at times. If the bucket becomes too full, it will overflow and become too heavy to carry. So finding ways to empty or to find some release to the pressures we can experience can be helpful. Here are some ideas of what can help. Some of them link into the 4 pillars of health that are helpful to keep in mind. This includes thinking about keeping active, finding ways to pace and relax, eating healthily to give the body the fuel that it needs. Other ideas include writing down problems, do some problem solving, or finding somebody to speak with. Prioritising can also be a really helpful strategy, particularly if you have less energy than normal. I also want to mention 2 other sources of support we have within the rheumatology team if you find that you would like some further support with adjusting to an arthritis. The first is the Living Well with Arthritis course, which we run. This is over 6 sessions and we cover various topics such as coping with fatigue or stress. We've put more information up about this on the website, and there's also a really helpful video that some of our previous participants put together talking about their experiences of being on the course and what they found helpful. We also have a psychology service within the rheumatology team, so if you're feeling quite stuck with certain emotions and feel that some extra support would be helpful, you're welcome to make contact. We've also put a lot of information on the website in relation to additional support in and around Bristol for further support with coping with emotional well-being.